You've probably heard it before, maybe online, maybe in a conversation. Man, we let white people steal everything from us, or we let them infiltrate our culture. It's a common statement in black spaces, frustration mixed with exhaustion, and the idea that we allow white supremacists to take, copy, and disrespect our culture without resistance. But here's the thing, that narrative isn't just wrong, it's also very misleading. It erases history, misplaces blame, and oversimplifies how power and oppression actually work. So today we're going to break down where that quote unquote we let them mindset comes from, why it's not true, and what it says about how we view our power in the face of white supremacy. First off, let's get something straight. Black people didn't let white supremacy happen. White supremacy was, and still very much is, enforced through power, violence, and control. From the transatlantic slave trade to Jim Crow laws to mass incarceration, the history of oppression wasn't built on consent. It was built on domination. Our ancestors didn't have the power to allow or deny the systems that oppressed them. They were resisting just to survive. Think about it. We've had rebellions, boycotts, movements, entire cultural renaissances, from the Harlem Renaissance to the Civil Rights Movement to the Black Panther Party, so on and so forth. Resistance has always been a part of our DNA. But when you don't control the institutions such as the record labels, film studios, fashion houses, or media outlets, your creations get filtered through someone else's lens. And for centuries, those lenses were owned by white power structures that profited off our creativity while erasing our names. So when someone says we let them take our culture, it ignores the fact that we never had full control of the platforms to protect it in the first place. So where did this idea even come from, this notion that we allowed all of this to happen? It actually came from a few places. First is respectability politics, something that is the bane of black people's existence. That old school belief that if we behave right, dress right, and speak right, racism will somehow just go away. That mindset made its way into the next generation, and over time it warped into self-blame. Instead of blaming racist systems, some started blaming black people for not being unified enough or careful enough with our culture. Then there's internalized oppression. When you live under systems designed to strip you of your power, you start internalizing the idea that maybe you're the problem. Maybe you could have done more. So when people see cultural appropriation happening, it's easier to say we let them do it than to confront how deeply those systems are embedded. And in modern times, this got amplified by social media. Platforms reward outrage and sound bites, not nuance. So you'll see takes like, we gave white people the N-word, we keep inviting them to the cookout, we let them say our slang. But those viral statements ignore context. They don't talk about algorithms, corporate ownership, or the way culture spreads globally online. They just point fingers inward, which makes it feel like we are to blame for our own exploitation. Let's be real, cultural appropriation is real and it hurts. Black culture has shaped the entire modern world. One thing I've always said, we literally are the trendsetters of the globe. Music, fashion, language, humor, beauty standards, even internet culture itself. But appropriation doesn't happen because we let it happen. It happens because those with economic power can take, repackage, and sell our creations for a profit. So let's see how this plays out. I'm sure many of you have all heard the phrase AAVE, which stands for African American Vernacular English. It becomes Gen Z slang once white influencers start using it. TikTok dances started by black creators went viral only after white creators performed them. It was even a time when black TikTokers ended up going on a boycott for a whole summer because they weren't getting credit for their creativity. And hairstyles that got black people got discriminated against suddenly becomes trendy or edgy on white celebrities. And then there's the invite to the cookout meme, which started as a joke about inclusion and appreciation, but turned into this symbol of misplaced acceptance. Now people throw it around like a free pass, as if blackness is something that can be co-signed just on vibes alone. But the truth is, it isn't about permission, it's about control. And control comes down to who owns the narrative and who profits from it. So when we say they quote unquote stole our culture, we're actually talking about exploitation, not permission. Nobody let it happen, we were just never given equal access to protect it. Still, this "we let them" idea won't die easily because it taps into something deeper: frustration, fatigue. That feeling of being constantly copied, disrespected, and ignored, and screaming like into a void while watching your creations be celebrated on someone else. When that keeps happening, you start looking for control anywhere you can find it. So saying we let them gives the illusion of control, like we could have stopped it if we just tried harder. But the truth is, it's a coping mechanism. It's a way to make sense of a system that's been rigged against us. And while it's understandable, it's also very dangerous because it puts the blame back on the oppressed instead of on the oppressor. It's the same logic used in other systems of oppression where people are told if you just acted differently, you wouldn't be treated this way. But oppression doesn't work like that. It doesn't wait for permission. Now, here's the good thing. Things are changing. For the first time in history, we have digital ownership and creative control that previous generations did not have. Independent artists can build their own platforms. Black filmmakers can produce and distribute their work directly. Creators can call out appropriation in real time and mobilize audiences around it. The power we're gaining now isn't about asking permission, it's about building our own infrastructure. So instead of saying we let them, we can start asking who owns this content, who profits from this idea, who gets credited and compensated. That's how we shift from frustration to empowerment. We can't rewrite the past, but we can rewrite the narrative around it. Here's why this matters. When we say we let them, we're unintentionally doing the work of white supremacy for it. Because white supremacy thrives on division and self-blame. It wants us to see each other as the problem, to argue about who's real, who's invited, or who gave away the culture. That kind of infighting distracts from the real enemy, the systems that keep our culture undervalued while profiting off of it. And beyond that, it's unfair to our ancestors, the people who literally died protecting our traditions, music, and language. They didn't let anything happen. They resisted until they could not resist anymore. So we owe it to them and to ourselves to stop repeating narratives that erase their struggle and turn systemic issues into a self-inflicted wound. Here's the bottom line. We didn't let white supremacy happen. We didn't allow cultural theft, and we sure didn't invite anyone to exploit what we built. What happened, and is still happening to this day, is exploitation through systems of power that were never built for us in the first place. But now that we see it clearly, we can stop blaming ourselves and start focusing on what really matters: ownership, education, and collective strength. Our culture doesn't need gatekeeping out of insecurity, it needs guardianship out of love. Because when we understand where our power truly comes from, we stop making survival for surrender. Just remember, we didn't let them, we survived them. And that survival, that creativity, that innovation, that resilience is proof that our culture has always been stronger than the systems that's trying to consume it. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.